Okay, so now we've set up the push buttons, and each of these push buttons is now controlling a light. If we go to the build and then to the simulation, this is what we accomplished on the previous video. So if you've missed the previous video, it would be a good idea to go back and figure out how to create all these push buttons, lights, and get them to link together. Okay, so here's our simulator, and by pressing each of these push buttons, we have been able to turn on the indicator light below. Excellent. Okay, and that's most of the videos that are on the YouTube. They show you like how to control things and then how to simulate them, but they don't show you how to then send that signal to your PLC. And for me, that's the main reason for having an HMI. It's another interface with your PLC. So getting that to work takes quite a bit of time. So let's start off by opening up our Twidosuite. So I'm using a Twido PLC. We're going to open up this bad boy right here. And I've got a program set up for a forward-reverse starter. So we're going to go into programming mode here. Taking a little bit of time to come in. Let's go, brother. Okay, so I'm going to open up a recent project. I'm working on this at home, so my HMI setup for home is right there. Okay, and open up that guy. Working on rendering a video below, so everything's taking just a little bit too much time today. Right on. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go to describe. So on previous videos, we have gone here to the Ethernet connection, and we've double-clicked on here, and we've set our Ethernet IP for this PLC. So my Ethernet IP for this PLC at home is 192.168.2.230. Submask 255.255.255.0, and my gateway is 192.168.2.1. Okay. Below, what I need to do is I need to set up my slave IP addresses. So anything that the PLC is going to control would then become a slave to the PLC. Okay, not the best name, but that's the one that they've come up with. So for my HMI's IP is 192.168.2.232. So one thing you need to do is you have to add in this IP address for your slave for the HMI. Hit OK, and then you have both the IP address for your PLC and you have the IP address for your HMI. Then you have to drop in your HMI. In this case, I'm using a Magelis HMI from Schneider. And in order to grab that, then we're going to go to, where are we going to go to? Let me just find it here, guys. Okay, well, we're connecting this up to a network, so it's got to be under Network Elements. We'll open that up. The communication between these guys is Modbus, so we'll go to Modbus Elements. And I'm scrolling down until I see my Magelis HMI. So I can grab this guy and then drop it onto the screen. Okay, so these guys are identical. I'm going to get rid of this one for now. Now there's no link. Other videos show like a link to serial ports, but because we're talking to this over the Ethernet, we have to just double click on this. Tell it that is the slave, the first slave. We're going to do Modbus as our type. And the address that we're going to use is number 1. Okay, and that slave number 1 now corresponds to this right here where we double clicked and we said that our first slave right here was 192.168.2.232. So now the PLC knows that the first slave has that IP address, and that IP address corresponds to my HMI right here. Excellent. Okay, that's one step down. Okay, let's go to our program. Okay, so I have a forward-reverse contactors PLC program in here. These are my initial addresses that I had before, so input 0, 1, and 2, and then I have my holding contacts on 5 and 6, and I have my overload on 7. If you want to watch the video on how this was created to create this program right here, then you can check out the video in the Twidosuite playlist. Okay, let's go back to configure. Again, this has all of my inputs here on the one list. So there's my inputs, and my outputs are below. And my outputs are simply just a forward contactor and a reverse contactor. Now, I need to have some signals come in from my HMI. So in order to do that, rather than having the HMI go straight to an input, I'm going to make use of those internal bits, or those internal relays that are part of the PLC program. So I'm going to go to configure the data. And when I bring this up, this is my %M0. And when I bring this guy up, then you can see that I have created an input for %M0 all the way to %M10. So, I mean, that's probably the maximum inputs that I'm going to have for now. If I want to add in additional digital inputs into this PLC from the HMI, then I'm going to make use of these guys. So I now have 10 internal bits of logic that I can use to correspond to my HMI inputs. Okay, then I'm not going into an input, I'm going into a virtual input on my HMI. Okay, so set these guys up, and you should always have like a set of internal bits that correspond to your HMI. That way, when you create another program, you can just, copy and paste, and you've got all of your addresses, and they always correspond to the HMI, leaving these guys down below for other sequences in your programming. All right, let's go over to the program now. Okay, now I haven't finished my my program. We'll finish off this program later in the video, if we're running out of time, then we'll show this in the next video. But right here, I have my normal stop, reverse push button, reverse holding contact, forward electrical interlock. I have my overload, and then I have my reverse contactor. If you compare this standard PLC program for a forward reverse contactor with just a reverse, look at the forward now. In addition to my stop, I also have an HMI input. So I'm going to say this is my HMI input for 0, and I'm going to label this guy as my stop. Okay, so that's my first input from the HMI, and in that case, I'm going to make use of that guy as my stop push button on the HMI. Okay, then HMI input number 1 is going to correspond to my forward push button. So I'm going to label this guy HMI input number 1, but I'm going to say that that is going to correspond to my start push button. Come on. Okay, right on. So now I've got 2 of these guys in series. You'll notice that this is the opposite address. I haven't figured out how to configure the HMI so it already sends a signal in. But right now I'm waiting for that signal to come in from that stop push button. So this may change as I understand the HMI a little bit better. Over here I'm using an examine if closed, and so when that signal comes in from the HMI, then I'm going to have a path of logic that goes to my forward contactor. So I can hit my physical forward push button, or I can hit my virtual forward push button. Either one of those guys will turn on my output, and then I'm physically looking at my holding contact, and when that pulls in, then that will provide me with my path of logic and hold that contactor on until I hit my physical stop push button or my virtual stop push button on the HMI. Okay, so again, this PLC program is not done yet, but I am going to go to debug here, and I'm going to connect up using my Ethernet connection to my PLC, and I'm going to drop that program on there. In order for the HMI to physically control the PLC, then obviously the PLC has to have the program on it, and it has to be in the run mode. Okay, so this is going to take a little bit of time here to drop that PLC program on there. Okay, so I'm going to put this into run mode. Just waiting for this green light to turn on here. There we go. Okay, so let's just make sure that everything that's physically wired to the PLC is working properly. So here's my stop push button. So that's changing state real time. Okay, here's my forward push button. Excellent, so that's my forward there flashing. Okay, so that's working. My forward contactor is turned on and my forward holding contact is sending a signal in. I'm going to hit the stop and turn off my forward contactor. Okay, I'll let go of the stop now. And now I'll hit the reverse to make sure it works. So the reverse push buttons will go through and the reverse contactor will turn on. Okay, I'll now let go of the reverse push button. The holding contact below has actually pulled in and the reverse contactor is still on until I hit the stop. Excellent. Okay, so everything's working. I'm able to talk to the PLC. All of my physical push buttons are working. Program seems to be cool. So now we can move into dropping in that HMI signal so far. It's imperative that you double check each piece at a time as you go. Otherwise, there may be too many things in play that you've changed and you won't be able to figure out what exactly you need to change in order to make it work. I believe that's all of the settings that we need to do so far for the PLC. So now let's move into our HMI program. Okay, back to Vijeo Designer. Let's go down here to I/O Manager. So we're going to click on this guy. We're going to do right click on that guy, then hit New Driver, so right click on there. And we're going to set up a Modbus TCP IP. Okay, so we're making sure that we've highlighted this and we're using the Modbus equipment. Okay, we'll hit OK. And we should have a new Modbus come in. Excellent. Okay, so now this is what this HMI is going to talk to. So if you want it to talk to your PLC, then you're going to put in the IP of your PLC. So 192.168.2, and then my PLC is, what's my PLC? 230, I believe. Okay, and then I believe I had to change this to 1. Not sure why, but I had to change that to 1. We are going to keep this as TCP. Sure, preload data dictionary for online whoa, that's hard to say. Modifications. Okay, and then what we're going to do is we're going to click on this for the IEC 61131 syntax. Excellent. Zero based, high word first, low byte first, and we're going to keep this at custom for 120 bytes. Okay. All device addresses associated with this equipment will be converted to IEC. Yes. Right on. Okay, so that is set. The next thing we need to do now is we need to grab some variables. So when we go to the variables, just by right-clicking on variables, it comes up with forward, reverse, start, and stop. And from the previous video, we were using those so that when a push button was pressed on the HMI, then a light on the HMI was able to turn on. So these are all Boolean logic, meaning ones and zeros, and they're little bits of information that we can use internally. Okay, we now need to tie into something that's external of the HMI. So we're going to add in a new variable now. Okay, and what are we going to do? We're going to go to here, and we're not, sorry, hang on. We're going to go to external, okay, and we're going to go to this guy right here. We're going to keep this as d'integer, okay. Okay, I believe that's everything we need to do. Okay, so again, it's crucial to write down what you did before so that when you're reverse engineering, it makes it a lot easier. Not entirely sure if I need to do that yet. So let's see, what's the next thing that we need to do? So if we don't need that, we'll just delete it later on. Let's go up to variables and see what options we have. Import variables, export the variables, link the variables. Let's try this. So we're going to link. Okay, and at this point I need to find my PLC program. Okay, so I'm in my Twidosuite PLC programs. I have them in a different place than the program usually drops them in. So I've got HMI set up for home. That's the PLC project that we had open. And it says concept symbols. I don't want that. I want all my Twidosuite files. These guys right here. So these ones where it has XTWD and XPR. Okay, and I'm going to take this bad boy right here and open it up. Processing the symbols. 19 PLC symbols were, oh, look at that, that's nice. Okay, so we have all of our inputs now from that PLC program. So there's our forward contactor, output, holding contact, forward push button. There's all of my HMI inputs from %M0 to %M10. A couple other inputs and outputs. Let's take them all and add them to our, after clicking yes, variables were created. This action cannot be reversed. Proceed. Yes, boss. Excellent. Okay, we're going to close that up. And now if we open this up, oh, there's all the inputs from the PLC. So just as a recap, I went back and grabbed all of the inputs from the PLC program. And you can see that right now all of those inputs and outputs are Boolean. This guy right here was useless, so I'm going to delete that guy. Right on. Okay, so now we can make use of these inputs and we can tie them into our HMI program. Okay, so let me show you how to get these push buttons to talk on the HMI to talk to the PLC. I am amazed because this has taken me so long to figure out, but in doing it just a couple times, knowing how to do it now, it's a breeze. So really we just need to have someone provide us with a good tutorial, and then you can just fly through it. So we're going here to edit the switch, and I got there by right-clicking on that switch. Then here I'm going to do the operation. I've changed this from toggle to momentarily on so that it matches with the way that a switch would work. Our switches are momentarily on. They're not toggling something on and off. So this is going to mimic the actual switch action. Okay, I'm having it do two things. I'm turning on the light as long as I am pressing the push button, so the light on my HMI, and I'm going to send a signal into the PLC. The way that I'm doing that, let me get rid of each of these guys, is I'm going here, I'm going to toggle a bit. The first one I'm going to do, and I said toggle, but I'm going to have it momentarily on, and I'm going to go down here to my variables list, and I'd like this to turn on my forward bit on my HMI. Hit OK, and then remember I have to hit add in order to add it into the action of the switch. Okay, I also want to send a signal to the PLC, so I'm going to have momentarily on. I'm going here, we have tied in these bits from the PLC now, and I'm going to make use of HMI input number 1 for my forward. This is my stop, this is my forward. Okay, I'll hit OK. And again, if you go just back to here, I could have used the forward contactor, but I'd much rather use that memory bit. I can use it a number of times, and then I'm not firing on an output right from the HMI. I'm using a memory bit and then using that, and it just gives me a lot of leeway as to which way I can use that bit of information. Okay, so I also hit add there, and I added that in. So now it will turn on the light on the HMI, and it will also send a signal to my PLC. Hit OK, and we're ready to rock and roll. This guy for my reverse, I've done the same. Okay, so I've momentarily turned the bit on for the reverse, and now is that, I don't know if that's correct. Let's just make sure. That guy here, momentary on. I want my HMI input number 2 for the reverse. I'm going to say OK. Momentarily on, looks good. I'm going to add that guy in. Okay, not sure what I did there. Let's get rid of that guy. Okay, so the reverse bit on my HMI is going to be momentarily on, and I'm going to fire on that other memory bit in the PLC. Beautiful. Those guys are all set now. Couple other things I changed was on the lights. You can see that they're a lot more muted in color. They weren't popping between the difference between on and off, and these two colors were too close together. If I was to do this again, I would choose different colors for these guys. They're very close with the purple and the blue. Okay, so I went to edit lamp, and I said that I didn't want to have the light on with something with the HMI. I wanted it to look external of the HMI, and so I went here, and again, this is my, which one is this? Lost my train of thought. This is my reverse push button. So with this guy, go into the edit lamp, and I went here, and I went to here, and then I went to my reverse contactor right here, and I said, all right, as when my reverse contactor has turned on, then I'd like that light to turn on as well. Again, to have a closed loop, I could actually look at my reverse holding contact. But right now I'm just saying when I fire on the contactor on the PLC, then have the light turn on the HMI as well. Okay, this guy here for the forward, I have edited the lamp as well. And again, I have that looking at the forward output. So I'm going here down here to my PLC inputs. And right here I can see that my forward contactor output right there, Q00.2, and I grab this guy, hit OK, and then whenever my forward contactor gets a signal from the PLC, I want that light to turn on. Again, change the colors here, a little bit more muted when it was off, and poppier blue when it turns on. Beautiful. For the stop over here, I just made this as a momentary light tied into the push button, and then with the colors again muted, and then a poppy red for when it turns on. Beautiful. Okay, so now that everything's set, I need to go to here to go to build, clean everything off. Then I need to validate everything. Oh, there's some issues. Okay, let me take a look at this and I'll come back to you. Looks like switch number 4. I missed something there. Hang on for a minute. Okay, so everything's cool now. What I'd done there is when I went to edit the switch, I must have been talking and not looking at what I was doing, and I had actually missed putting in this momentary on for my PLC bit. So we'll hit OK. Again, we'll go to build. We'll validate everything. Everything's cool now. We will now build everything. That builds everything on the screen, and then we're going to download this bad boy. And then I'll do a picture-in-picture and I'll show you how everything's working together. Okay, it's now downloaded to the HMI. I'll show you through the simulation how it's working, and then I'll show you the actual HMI screen as well. Okay, so we'll grab this guy, we'll just bring her down here, and we'll hit each of these push buttons. So here's my simulator. I'm going to hit the start. Remember, we didn't change anything with that, so it will toggle this bit. I'm not using the start right here. I just put it in there so that later on, if I was doing a 3-wire or something like that, I could make use of this in a later program. So hit the start and it turns on the light. I have to press the button again for it to go off because we had it as a toggle. Again, this is not being used in the PLC program. The stop, you can see here how it just momentarily now. And let me bring up my PLC program here, and you'll be able to see it. Let's see if I can get both things beautiful. I can change both things at the same time, right? So it's really cool. By changing the simulator, it also changes your PLC program. Okay, you can see that this has nothing to do with my program whatsoever. Okay, but this one is changing that HMI input 0 real time. Beautiful. And then check this out with the forward. It actually turns on the contactor in the simulation mode. So when I hit the forward, the light will turn on when this output bit sets. Cool, eh? So I've just pressed it and let go. So you can see that input number 1 start push button is changing real time. And now this bit has set. This is looking at that bit, and so the light is on in the forward direction. I'm going to hit the stop. This is a momentary stop, so the light will just flash on whenever I press it. Kicks out my forward. I let go of the stop, and we're ready to rock and roll in reverse. And I hit reverse, and turn that light on. Let go of the reverse, and when this bit sets, then this light is on, and everything's rock and rolling. Now as I go through this, I notice that I neglected to go through my HMI program with you. So let me just quickly go through that with you as well. So all I did was I added in another stop push button here, and I labeled it the same as that memory bit 0. Down here I have my start push button, so that was my HMI input number 1. And so this is in series. this is in parallel with my forward push button, and that's simply what you need to do in order to add in another stop and a start switch, same as you would do with a normal PLC program if you had an external stop and start station. I've done the same thing down here. I've put in my stop push button, and I've addressed it the exact same here. I've used an XIO here and an XIC over here for my HMI input number 2. Right? So this one here should really say forward push button, and then I'll add in another label down here for the reverse. Alright guys, give me 2 seconds and I'll bring up the actual HMI screen and you'll see that it looks identical to this simulator. Alright, so now we can see real time what's going on with the touchscreen. Again, when I press this button, nothing changes on my program because we haven't tied the start in whatsoever. But the stop here, you can see that changing on the screen for the PLC. It's changing real time. Okay, and again, it's momentary. The light is only turning on when I have my button being pressed. Okay, and you can see that the colors on the push button change as well. See the black and the white, so it mimics me actually pressing the push button, which is very cool. Okay, I'm going to hit the forward now, and that will turn on my forward contactor. I've changed on the program. You can see where I've changed here. This is now labeled forward push button, and this is labeled reverse push button from the HMI. Okay, so when I press this forward, this will be true, and this forward contactor will turn on, and when the forward contactor turns on, then the light should illuminate as well. So forward push button is pressed, let her go, and this light stays illuminated because that forward contactor is still fired on. Okay, I can hit the reverse and nothing happens, right? So you can see that that reverse input is coming in, but the forward holding contact is now closed, and so this is no longer true, and so I can't go in reverse. So that's good. My PLC program is still working the same as it would with physical push buttons. I'm now going to hit the stop, which turns off that forward contactor, and now we'll put it into reverse. So in reverse again, this will come in, so that'll be true, that'll fire on my contactor, and then this light will turn on when my reverse contactor is being turned on by the PLC. Ah yes, very cool, and it stays illuminated because the reverse is still on. Very cool. Alright guys, hopefully you followed me all the way through. That was a long video, but that sets up everything for the HMI and the PLC, and moves us forward in the fact that we can do some pretty cool programming now with the PLC and the HMI. Alright guys, thanks for your patience. We'll see you in the next video.